brakes lights, proper color, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They are not missing. My left and right turn signal and four-ways are the proper color, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not missing. My headlights, high beam, low beam, proper color, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. Now we're going to go underneath the hood. Alright, on this side we have our alternator. It is not cracked, bent, or broken. It is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. It is not missing any nuts or bolts. The wires are properly mounted and secured at both ends. They are not worn, torn, or frayed. The alternator is belt driven. The belt is not worn, torn, or frayed. The belt must have a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of slack in it. Now we will go to this side. We'll start off with our coolant. The cap is properly tightened and on and secure. The coolant level is at proper operating range and it is not leaking. The coolant reservoir is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. It is not cracked, bent, or broken. Our power steering fluid, the cap is on tight. It is at the proper operating level and it is not leaking. The reservoir itself is not cracked, bent, or broken and is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. Our oil, the cap is properly tightened, on and secure. The oil is at the proper operating range and it is not leaking. Our transmission fluid, the cap is properly on and tightened. It is not cracked, bent, or broken. The transmission fluid is at the proper operating level and it is not leaking. In here we have our water pump. The water pump is not cracked, bent, or broken. It is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. It is not leaking. The hoses are secured at both ends.
Okay, point to that water pump again. No. There you go.
Down here.
All right.
The air compressor is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. It is not cracked, bent, or broken. It is not missing any nuts or bolts. It is not leaking. The steering pump, the air compressor is gear driven. The water pump is gear driven. The steering pump is gear driven. It is not cracked, bent, or broken. It is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle and it is not leaking. This brings us to the steering gearbox. It is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts or bolts, and it is not leaking. Our steering column, properly mounted and secured at both ends of the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken, and it is not leaking or fluids. Our linkage, our pitman arm and drag link are properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They're not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts or bolts. That brings us to the suspension. Our hanger mounts, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts or bolts. Our frame, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not missing any nuts or bolts, no unauthorized holes or welds. Our leaf springs, properly mounted and secured at both sides, not missing any nuts or bolts, not cracked, bent, or broken. Our U-bolts, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts or bolts. And our shock absorber, properly mounted and secured at both ends, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts or bolts. That brings us to the brake system. The brake lines and hoses, properly mounted and secured at both ends, not cracked, bent, or broken, not worn, torn, or frayed, and not leaking. Our brake drums and our brake shoes, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken, not leaking. The brake shoe should have at least a 1/4 inch of material. The brake chamber and the brake clamp Properly mounted.
Touch the chamber. Yep. And the clamp. Okay.
Properly mounted, secured to the vehicle. Not cracked, bent, or broken. Not leaking. Not missing any nuts or bolts. The slack adjuster and push rod. Not cracked, bent, or broken. Properly mounted, secured to the vehicle. Not missing any nuts or bolts. Not leaking. The slack adjuster should have no more than an inch of slack. That's it for the brake system. For the tire system, we have our inner and outer hub seal. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. They are properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They're not missing any nuts or bolts, and they are not leaking. Our lug nuts, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. They're not missing. There are no rust trails, and there are no shiny metal.
Which would what?
Which would mean they're loose. Our rims, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. They're not missing any nuts or bolts. There are no unauthorized holes or welds in the rim. Our tire. The condition of the tire: no cuts, abrasions, or bulges on the sidewall or the tread. No threads showing anywhere on the tire. The inflation: there is a valve stem on each tire where you can check inflation using a pressure gauge. The depth of the tire of these two front tires should be 4 30-seconds. The tread is wearing evenly. That's it. Next, we'll move on to our door. The outer handle, the inner handle. Not cracked, bent, or broken. Properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, are operating properly. Our weatherproof seal. Not worn, torn, or frayed. Properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. Not missing. Our window. Properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. Not cracked, bent, or broken. Not missing. Our hinges. They're properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. Not cracked, bent, or broken. Not missing any nuts or bolts. Not missing. The door itself is properly mounted on the vehicle. Our marker lights. Proper color. Not missing. Not cracked, bent, or broken. Properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. Our beacon lights. Proper color. Not cracked, bent, or broken. Properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. Not missing.
What you got?
What?
Alright, now we'll come to the side of the truck. The frame is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken. There are not missing any nuts or bolts, and there are no unauthorized holes or welds. The cross members are properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They are not cracked, bent, or broken. No unauthorized holes or welds. The exhaust system, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken. Not missing any nuts or bolts, and not leaking. The drive shaft, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken. Not leaking, and there is no debris in the way of the drive shaft. The bed is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken, and is clear of debris. The DOT clearance tape is the proper color, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing. Our marker light, proper color, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. This brings us to our back axle. Our suspension system. The hanger mounts are properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not missing any nuts or bolts, not cracked, bent, or broken, and not missing. Our frame, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken, no unauthorized holes or welds, not missing any nuts or bolts. Our leaf springs, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly secured at both ends of the vehicle, not missing. Our U-bolts, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing any nuts or bolts, not missing. Our shock absorber is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken, not leaking. This brings us to the brake system. The brake shoes and the brake drums are not cracked, bent, or broken. They are properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They are not missing any nuts or bolts. The brake shoe should have a 1/4 inch. The brake shoe does have a 1/4 inch of friction material. The brake chamber and the brake clamp properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They are not cracked, bent, or broken. They are not missing any nuts or bolts, and they are not leaking. Our slack adjuster and push rod, they are properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They are not cracked, bent, or broken. They are not leaking and not missing any nuts or bolts. The brake lines and brake hoses, properly mounted and secured at both ends. They are not cracked, bent, or broken. They are not worn, torn, or frayed. They are not missing any nuts or bolts, and they are not leaking. This brings us to our tires. The inner and outer hub seal are not cracked, bent, or broken. They are properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They are not missing any nuts or bolts, and they are not leaking. The rims are properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They are not cracked, bent, or broken. They are not missing any nuts or bolts. There are no unauthorized holes or welds in the rim. The lug nuts, they are not cracked, bent, or broken. They are properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. There are no rust trails on the lug nuts, and there are no shiny metals that would indicate they are loose. The condition of the tire, there are no cuts, bulges, or abrasions on the sidewall or the treads. There are no threads showing. You can check inflation with the valve stems. Each tire has one. You can use a pressure gauge to check the pressure in each tire. The depth on these tires has to be at least 2 30-seconds. You can also check the torque bar while we're here. It is not cracked, bent, or broken, and is properly mounted and secured at both ends of the vehicle. This will bring us to the rear of the truck. Our identification lights. They are proper color, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. Our left and right turn signals and four-ways are the proper color, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, and are not missing. Our reverse lights and reverse signal are the proper color and proper sound, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not missing. Our brake lights and tail lights, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing, and proper color. Our license plate light and license plate are properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They are not cracked, bent, or broken. They are the proper color and not missing any nuts or bolts. Our bumper is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken, not missing, and no unauthorized holes or welds. Our D-rings are properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not cracked, bent, or broken. Our electrical line on the inside is not worn, torn, or frayed. It's properly mounted and secured on the vehicle. Our glide hands and air lines on the inside, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle. They are not worn, torn, or frayed, and they are not leaking. Our pintle hitch, not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not missing any nuts or bolts. And this brings us to our trailer. The chains on the trailer for the D-nuts, the D-rings, are not cracked, bent, or broken. They're not twisted. The rings are not stretched or broken. It is properly mounted and secured at both ends. The net is properly mounted and secured to the vehicle, not missing any nuts or bolts, not cracked, bent, or broken. The pintle latch is also not cracked, bent, or broken.